Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and good morning to everyone. My name is Muhammad Farooq bin Mahmud. My matrix number is 173321F1003. So today I'm going to do task 1, which is configure IPv4 and IPv6 static and default route. Uh, so okay, so as you can see here, this is the question, and this is the topology that they want us to do. And this is the network address that we have to follow. So we're gonna do task one first, which is task one, which is configure IPv4 and IPv6 static and default routes. So now we start with so now basically the objective is in this packet traces, you will configure a static default and floating static route for both IPv4 and IPv6 protocol. And so we're starting with the part one, which is configure IPv4 static and floating static default routes. So the packet tracer network requires a static route to provide internet access to the internal LAN users through the ISP. In addition, the ISP router requires static route to reach the internal LAN segment. In this part of the activity, we will configure an IPv4 static route and a floating default route to add redundancy to the network. So the step one is configure an IPv4 static route default route. So we go to the edge router. So go to the CLI and we do enable config. No, no, no. Do config T. So first we're gonna do is IP route 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 10, 10, and 1. So on the edge router configuration directly connected to IPv4 default static route, this is the primary default route should be through the router ISP1. So the step two is what we're gonna do is on the edge router configure a directly connected IPv4 floating static default route. This default route should be through the router ISP2. It should have an administrative distance of 5. So we're gonna do IP route 0, 0, 0, 0, then 10, 5, and most importantly is 5 for the distance. We enter. So now we move on to the part 2, which is a configure IPv6 static and floating static default routes. In this part of packet tracer, you will configure the IPv6 static default route, static default, and floating static default routes for the IPv6. So the step one is on the edge router, configure the next hop static default route. The primary default route should be through the router ISP1. So now we just continue IPv6 route. So 0 2001 and DB 8 A 1 and 1. Enter. So now to the step 2, which is the on edge router, configure the next hop IPv6 floating static default route. And the router should be via router ISP2. Use an administrative distance of 5. So just like we did in the router IPv4 in the same router. So IPv6 route /0 2001 DB8 A 2 1, and the most importantly is the distance, which is 5. So click enter. So now we completed the part 2, and now we're going move on to the part 3, which is the so now we go on move on to the part 3, which is configure IPv4 static and floating static routes to the internet LANs. So in the step 1, we have to go on to the ISP1. So first we close this, go to the ISP1 and configure the next hop IPv4 static route to the LAN 1 network through the edge router. So we first enable and config. So now IP route to 168.10.16.255.255.255. Enter. So now on ISP1, configure next hop IPv4 static route to the LAN 2 network to the edge router. So now we can just continue on the ISP1 uh, IP route 192.168.11.32.255.255.240 and the G0/0/0 and the distance for 5. Two to 4, 10 to 10, 2. Enter. And now we already complete the step 1. Now we're going to the step 2, which is configure IPv4 floating static routes to the internal LAN. So we're gonna continue in the ISP1 again, but we have to configure a connected floating static route to the LAN 1 through the ISP2 router. And we're gonna use the administrative distance of 5. So IP route 192. 168.10.16.255.255.255.240 G0/05. Okay, so now we're gonna continue next on the ISP1. Configure a directly connected floating static route to the LAN 2 through the ISP2 router, and still we're gonna use the administrative distance of 5. IP route 192.168. Enter. So now we already completed the part 3 and we move on to the part 4, which is configure IPv6 static and floating static route to the internal LAN. So step 1 is configure IPv6 route static router to the internal LAN. So now on the ISP1, configure the next hop IPv6 static route to the LAN 1 through network through the edge router. So we're still gonna use the ISP1, and now we use IPv6 route 2001 DB8 1 and 10 64 2001 DB8 A 1 2. Click enter. So on the ISP1, configure the next hop IPv6 static route to the LAN 2 through network through the edge router. So IPv6 route 2001 DB8 11 64 2001 DB8 A and 2. So we're gonna do the step 2, which is configure IPv6 floating static route to the internal LAN. So on the ISP1, configure the next hop IPv6 static route router to the LAN 1 through the ISP2 router and use an administrative distance of 5. That's just like before. IPv6 route 2001 DB8 1 10 64 2001 DB8 F F 2 and the distance is 5. Enter. So now we continue on the ISP1 still. Configure the next IPv6 floating static route to the LAN 2 through the ISP router. And we're gonna still use the distance of 5. So IPv6 route 2001 DB8 64 001 F2 and the distance is 5. So, if your configuration has been complete correctly, we should be able to ping the web server from the host on the LAN 1 and the LAN 2. In addition, if the primary route link is still down, connectivity between LAN and the host and the web server should still exist. So now we try, we fast forward first. Okay, so it's complete. So now as you can see here, it successfully uh, sent. So now we're going to continue to the next part, which is configure host route. So if we go back to the edge router, enable 50. So we're gonna do IP routes 192.0.0.10 and 255.255, and the serial is 0. Enter. And now on the edge router, we're gonna configure an IPv4 directly connected to the floating host route to the customer server. Use the administrative distance of 5. So IP route 198.0.0.10 255.255 and the serial 0 001 and the distance is 5. Eh, no. Serial 0 0 0 0. So now we enter. So now we're gonna do the edge router. So IP route 198 0.0.10 255.255.255 serial 0/0/0/1 and the distance is 5. Sorry. Oh, okay. Bit of confusion there. /1 and 5. And now we're going move on to the step 2, which is configure IPv6 host route. So we're gonna do it on the edge router. Configure an IPv6 next hop host route to the customer server through the ISP1 router. So IPv6 route 2001 DB8 F F10 slash 128 2001 DB8 1 1. Now on the edge router, configure an IPv6 directly connected the floating host route to the customer server through the ISP2 router. And now we're still gonna use the administrative distance of 5. So IPv6 route 2001 DB8 FF 10 128 2001 DB8 A2 1 and the distance is 5. So now the task 1 is already complete. Now I'm gonna give to next person who did the task 2. Thank you. Ah!